Right. Okay. That's fine. Is that a... Do you want to give it a watch to make sure it's all working and the sound is working and everything? Do you want to have a quick look at it to make sure all the sound's working and everything?
Yeah, we turn on the computer.
Okay, so I think it's all live and everything. So I'm doing a stream because I'm kind of just bug fixing and helps me talk through problems. So the problem at the moment, so I've reprogrammed pretty much everything in a much better way. Like I've learned tons in the 3 years since I started programming, and I've kind of reapplied it all to this project that I started a year ago, making sure that functions don't get called more often than they need to be, things like that. It's just stuff that I've learned from watching various YouTube videos and just practice. So the challenge, so I'm right back at the beginning. It's a little bit demoralizing, but I'm very confident in the code, except that we are fixing all the bugs in. So the first step was this, and it's to just get this one. Yeah, easy peasy. And the thing triggers moving the object whenever it completes the production cycle. So that's really straightforward. And actually, we move on to the next challenge. There are other challenges, but let's go straight to this one. This is one of the things we could do, and then we say, alright, so when I remove one of these pieces of food, what you should see is everything gets moving again. But as you can see, it doesn't even leave the container. So why is that? It's because I've reprogrammed a lot of that. Because now, when you grab something, an item from a container, the only thing that's handled here is just to tell the controller to grab that object. And then to do the UI side of it, to say, okay, we'll shuffle the thing around so that to shuffle the UI around so that you don't have to, so that it's in the side and you can see what you're doing. So just UI and making it actually happen. So let's be diligent and comment this out. Let's do the thing. Yeah, tell controller to grab. I don't really have a solid grasp on it, but I found it helps for me to just actually comment like crazy and just pretty much highlight every line. And then if you're kind of lazy, you can just read the green. But even if you know everything that's going on, it just makes things quicker in your head. It's like having a map. So yeah, item. Yeah, so we tell the controller to grab, and I do in fact want that to be handled at the controller's end. So let's go into that. We go. It's a new thing I learned. I didn't know this until like a few months ago, that you could control click to get to the function. So yeah, we charge for Love Glove, irrelevant to us here. Snap the tentacle position, that's all. Frighten the humans, animate and sound, that's all not going to change. Grab the object, so we say, let's make our grabbed object the thing that we're grabbing. Let's make its parent the grabbed thing, so it follows it around. Let's reset its local position and local Euler angles, just I think because, I don't know why, but I guess it was something I fixed. And make sure we can see it in case it was hidden in the first place, which would only be the case if we're grabbing it from a container. For items, for humans, well, this is going to apply to both, right? Because this is going to be this, because I'm going to have a code which tells an object that it's been moved. So what it says is, let's look at it. Yeah. Trigger previous building. This is the one that I really kind of want to do everything. And the main thing it does is it says for each endpoint in the building's endpoints, if it has an out point attached to it, so the endpoint.in, I know it's confusing, but there's actually no better way. Empty previous container, so if it's a container that's attached to it, then say do, which means update the UI, do the container. If you've got something in the outbox, send it out. Just up, it's like the update. And I don't want it to be in the update method. I want it to be only when we need it. So we need to say to a container, well, the thing that's in front of you has just made some space, or has just something that's been grabbed from a transport or a container. And so the thing behind you can move. So in the case of this, the scene that we had, what we wanted is that when we take from the feeding trough, that should trigger the pipe to say, well, hey, I can move. Because before I had it that it would just do it every second. It would just update and say, well, have you still got something in you and you haven't moved it? Well, have another crack then. And I think that's going to slow the game down eventually, especially if people make massive pipe systems. So it really just needs to be only when needed. So we say for each endpoint, so if it's a transport, then transport.moving is true. So like if you've got something in you, then move it along. If it's a previous station, then that station, if it's got a human blocked up in it, phase 4, then eject that human. Because if you're in phase 4, that means your pipe has been blocked. Yeah, it's sort of another thing, but never mind. So what I would really like is this function that's out cargo. No, that's not what we're focused on. So we're concerned with graph. See, this is the trick. It's actually difficult even to figure out what to do, let alone to do it. And that's why it helps to talk. So we have this script here, which I think is a clunky way of emptying. So if it's so when we grab an object, we say, okay, well, if we're grabbing it, for every building, if that building is a transport, Jesus, yeah, that's terrible code, then if that building's cargo is this thing that we've just taken, then your cargo is now null. It's very, very roundabout way. And if it's the ID matches, then and we're with constant cargo.get component items. See, I'm not a very good programmer, but I am improving. So what we do here is I want this actually to all exist, and I don't want it to exist in this form, and I want it to exist in here. I want it to be like, when we move an item, it's like, yeah, let's just cleanly move it out and trigger the building behind you. And in the case of grabbing an item, which we're doing now, it's just also trigger the thing behind you. So that's why it's a separate function to just out cargo. And so trigger previous building happens on out cargo, and it happens on grabbing something, and probably on doing spells to things later. Maybe more, but those are the ones I can think of. So trigger previous. So what we're going to do with this code is just kill it. I use a violent word intentionally. Goodbye. And this one is the one that says, yeah, check all, if it's a container. See, this one is the one I added fairly recently. So if it's a container, then for each box in the container, if that box contains the object, so it's like the other one, but we're just checking for the actual container itself. So that code ought to be doing it. That code ought to be removing the item from that box when I grab it, right? Here we are on grab. If building is not equal to null, when we do it from here, building is indeed not null, right? So we need to find out so configure items all fine, just make it active because we've grabbed it. Do the appearance. So that's why it helps to comment things. You can just know what to ignore. Remove from container. I'll probably get rid of that at some point, but remove from container. Yeah, so that seems about right. Check the container. So remove the item from whatever container it's in. That seems simple. That works. Yeah. That's the thing that's missing. So why is that should happen? So what we do is we say that's why the debug.hello is there. And we did actually get that far. So what I do is, and because you're here, I'll do something a bit more sophisticated. .log. I'm just going to put hello here. But the next one, let's say, I'm just going to be like, just to see how far we're actually getting and what the stopping point is. Debug.hello building container. So we know roughly how far we've got. And it's a bit more sophisticated. I usually just have 3 hellos and just, I count them. But yeah, start and let's just do one where it's like removed. Except the thing is, I want this to exist in previous container. But let's just make it work here for now. Let's not get ahead of us. Maybe that's it would be prudent to do that, but I didn't. The other thing we want to test over here is what happens when you fill it up, right? Yeah. Oh, this one works. But the problem is it doesn't then try to, one problem at a time. Okay, what we want to achieve, so let's just restart this. So that's a different problem. But you know, really, once we deal with it, it looks really bad. Like I've destroyed the entire project. That's how it feels a little bit. That's not the case. So let's just do the traditional setup. So let's just fill up both containers, because when it completes a cycle, it attempts to do another cycle. If there's nothing in the way. Okay, and then what ought to happen? Boom. Okay, so we got as, and it did it twice for some reason, but okay, so we got as far as building, so that's not the problem. We got as far as container, that's not the problem. But we, and why did we get to container again? Called from 2704. Oh, I didn't, oh, so it did remove as well. Okay. So is it that it just hasn't, okay. Okay. So it's removed it, but then I do need to do a, so it's working, it's just that it's not updating visually. You see the life I lead? I don't even know what's real and what's not. Whether I'm fighting a monster or something that looks like a monster. So at this point, quite simply, because we've removed something from the container, we should building.container.do, which just does everything, which is probably a bit clunky, but I'm not going to go and rewrite the container now. But yeah, I could make it that I don't have to just do that, that actually we can specifically only ask it to do what we need it to do. But let's keep it to at least, at most, 5 things at a time, if not 1. So that should just update it properly. Okay. Not even mentioning all the other things that went wrong there. So okay, that looks right. So that happens. Wonderful. Don't give me that shit. Okay, so building the transport. So okay, so we trigger previous building in each case when we place our cargo. Okay, just one thing at a time. So what I'm concerned about is, well, there's obviously a bug in trigger building, so maybe it actually works, but I need to find that bug. So, and this is simply I see. So we attempt to trigger previous building even if there isn't a building. Well, we shouldn't bother with that. So if building is no, that's really simple. That's not taking any processing power. That's just building's not even null. Trigger the building. All right. Let's give that another try. So it's a test of putting it next to it. Okay, well the problem isn't there. building is null. But the building is null. Okay, so I don't know why it's giving me that error there, because we shouldn't actually be triggering the building. Did that update into the script properly? If building is not equal to null, trigger it. It is null. Why are you triggering it? Because we're picking it up off the floor. It should trigger. What building is it trying to pick up from there? That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, exactly. Right? So why? So where is trigger previous building being called from? It's 27. Alright, what's that? It's not 2708, is it? Controller, no, controller. 2708 is this one. So this is where we're grabbing an object, trigger previous building. Oh, I got a little bit confused. Okay. This is where the thing was. Well, in both cases, the building is not equal to null, trigger previous building. Okay, so within grabbing or placing, but I don't think it should even really be considered in placing. This all needs cleaning anyway. You see, I have a lot to do. It's like one step forward, 2 steps back, but then like we get a plane. That's the idea. One step forward, 2 steps back, but we level up. So eventually you get like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. After several years, I guess. No, it's a bit demoralizing being behind. But let's try another cigarette. But I don't think. I mean, I've improved the code immensely. If you read the devlog, I've done loads of stuff. So the issue here, so that we shouldn't get any more bugs on that now. Not that that was ever even the goal, but it's just okay. So food process. So it empties, but it's not triggering the thing behind it. Oh wait, hold on. Hold on, is this empty? Doesn't have any cargo. And this has 9, so that didn't even pass the stuff to it. Really don't understand. Okay. Or at least that's all sense. Put it back in. It sort of stays where I left it, so I need to make sure that when I place an object, so you just get on tangents. When I place an object in a container, is this place? Yeah. When I place an object in the container, yeah, I don't know why I would do it for rotation, but OBJ, I presume, being the thing we're placing it on. I should really clean that up because that's not very clear, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So that's not the bug I'm trying to focus on now, so I'm just going to assume that's fixed for now. It's probably not good practice, but I really... So what I want to find out is why when I pick up an item from a building, making space in it, am I lost position? Yeah, that's fine. When I pick up an item from a container, I've made space in it, therefore the previous thing should move along, should move its object along, which should then trigger the previous thing to move along, because out cargo trigger previous building. So on grab, and even if this causes errors, on grab, all I want to do with regards to the building is trigger the previous, and this should be a factor of the container. This should be a factor of... No. No, that's silly. No. Okay, now trigger previous, all this should do, all trigger previous building should do. And I may have to rewrite some code here, but this is I'm in the desert, I'm in the jungle, and I have to just hack at things with my machete. Yeah. So we don't even have the one for... So I want to say, screw this for now. All this thing does is empty a container. It's for each of the endpoints. If it's got a thing, then it should tell that thing to try and do its thing. If it's got a transport, it should tell that transport to move. If it's got a station, it should say, hey, you can move now if you were blocked before. That's what it does. And this should be called on out cargo upon successful movement of a cargo, and it should happen on grab to a transport that's being taken from or a container that's being taken from. And I want to just be able to say, just do it. I don't want to have to specify container or transport. So I'm going to go trigger previous building. So is that enough? Trigger previous building. Okay, so this should only be happening. This should happen. Connect port. Yeah, connect port is another instance where you would want to trigger the building, and that's the one I did. So when I add, so that's why it works when I add a pipe to a building that is full, it says, hey, I've got space now, let's go. Cool. It also happens, so that's one instance I missed, but there it is. Okay, it also happens on successful out cargo. It's also named in its function, and it also happens when we grab something. Those are the only times it happens. That's perfect. That's the only times I need it to happen. And what this script does is says you can move through. And so now I'm really confident with that now. So couldn't be said about code before I did all these changes. So I'm just figuring out now. Interesting. Okay, so yeah, like I said, I'd probably be creating problems. So I'm just gonna I think I might have gone a little bit hard with the machete there. So this needs to occur at some point. So let's look from here. Okay, so if we trigger previous building, so this is separate to this part, which is the bit that I like, right? This is the bit that definitely should be here. That's the thing that moves the thing, right? I don't even know what happened in that last one, but let's just and what is this doing? This is saying, see, I think this should happen. Like, that shouldn't happen on a trigger build. In fact, that's what's going on. That's what's actually going on. I think this is happening. Is that right? No, but I deleted that. I don't fucking know. I don't know anything. What's happening is... So that's going... Did this happen? No. Oh, it did, but... Okay, so... If buildings are transport... So this should happen, like cargo getting cleared to null. And we're asking if the building that transport or cargo. So no, we don't want that to happen. We don't need that to happen. But sorry, we do need that to happen. But you would think it would happen like here. So it's like we have. I mean, essentially, I don't think we need it to happen when we grab an object. Okay, you know, I'm going to go through this. Great spot. So when we pass an object, yeah, it's like what happened here is, so that's supposed to go, no, we send the object along, so to the next container, and it's like in the case that the building that we're moving from is a container, then we need to, sorry, if we're moving from a transport, we need to say, okay, well, now that we've moved the thing, the cargo is null. And I just put it here because it sort of happens in each instance here, but actually works just as well at the top, and I don't think is what we want to do when we're simply grabbing it. Now, what I'm thinking now, and what's hurting my brain, is this needed if I take, so I've taken an object from a building, I do want its cargo to now be null. And I do want to flip the out point, I just want to trigger that code in case it's applicable. And this should really be trigger previous buildings, to be clear. Just because it's like this, I give it a building, I give it the object that's been used, and I say for each thing, then move it along. And upon moving the cargo, we say, yeah, the cargo is empty. And I put it here because it sort of applies to each of these instances, so I just wanted it in the catch-all. But I think just to like keep things simple, I feel like at the moment we can just say, well, yeah, if we've moved, if it's been successful, so that means we've moved the thing, then if we've moved it from a transport, the transport's cargo is now null, whether we've moved to any of these other things, because that's how it's set up. Station occupier is null, because we've cleared. So because of the stuff that I did yesterday, just literally yesterday, it's not the building's transport, because the building may have a transport, but no, it's the out point's transport, because we now record that. Right? Yeah. See, I'm really in the woods here. So we don't actually record station's processor. It's might be a bit convoluted, but station process. So let's go through this again for me in my case. So we check that we have. So what we've said is we've said out cargo, and let's look at where this appears. Shouldn't appear in too many places. Oh, it does. Okay, but that's fair because what we're saying is every time we finish with a so in processor it's going to happen a lot. In container happens on do. So and it happens twice. It happens if it's a liquid, then out cargo to the liquid out point. Yes, to whatever is designated the liquid out point, which will be attached to the out box. Whatever is, so that's simple. That makes perfect sense. Let's just do the ones not processor. Yeah, simple enough. So the function empty the human, attempt to empty the human from the cargo. And so push him out, and we measure the success in each case. And if it failed, meaning we should still have the human, and we've not made any progress at having. In phase 4 now. Phase 4 is just, as you've seen before, tells us we're blocked. So there's a human waiting to leave. It's not going to repeat itself. It's not going to do the same cycle again. It's not going to attempt to reprocess them. It's just going to wait until it has a free space. Happens here in transport. Makes perfect sense. You have reached your destination, out to whatever your to your out point. Your out point. It's the main thing that it needs to know. And of course the name itself, and then in processor, let's look at all of them briefly, and we'll do a, just so we can scroll through them easily here. As these are, so if it's individual to a machine, that makes sense because machines use different out points. And I guess what I want to make sure is that it's okay, so that these all make sense. So it gets called by the processor mainly, and so out cargo gets called a bunch of times, but it's pretty simple there. It's when we finish processing a thing, we've made a new thing, we've yeah. So we check for a connection. So default success to false, and we say, right, if the out point is connected to an out point, it's connected to a something, then if that thing is a transport, then check that that transport's cargo is empty, is null. And then check for, and because it's a transport, this one's trickier than the other ones because we don't want it to move to move to the end of the transport unless it's full, and unless there's space at the other end. So it actually has to check if there's space at the other end. I might have made a mistake here. Okay, so we check if the stations, if we're going to a station, is it free? If are we going to a transport, is it got a cargo, is it free? If we're going to a container, has it got space? Based on the box number that it's attached to. Okay, and then we have the case for if we success equals So then what we do is we check if it's possible to eject, and all this does is if any of these turn out right. So if we've got an empty state, we've got a station and it's empty, and we've got a cargo and it's free, and we've transport and it's free, and we've got a container and it's got space. And if in the case that it hasn't got an out point, then okay, is the space in front free? And if so, then success is also true. So success is true. We have checked that we will be sending this cargo on. So it will start moving. The thing is, what I want to do is, regardless of whether it's success, this is a mistake I made when I coded this. I think I want it to take I want that to be its cargo. I just don't want it to start moving until, and I think there is the issue. I just don't want it to start moving. So yeah, only let's redo everything. Okay. So we have checked that we will indeed be moving this, that we do indeed have space at the other end of this conveyor or pipe that we've just sent the cargo to. And if it has got space, then we indeed want to move it. We indeed want the transport to start moving. But either way, we want that to be its cargo. Right? The success I'm using, it's like using it twice here. Maybe I shouldn't, but so this should happen either way. So make that transport our cargo. So make their cargo our cargo, and release us from our cargo. See, this is where we would want to put that. So this is where we would also say my cargo. I think this is the best place to put it. No, this does not need to be here. Okay, cool. So we then, and I'll comment this, attach cargo, or yeah, cargo, give cargo. In each case, and the success, I hope, is self-explanatory. Just you've made it. And that happens in 4 cases. Right. And we only want it to be moving if we've had this success thing. We only want it to be moving if there's space. Modify cargo. In each case, and then so if we're going, so yeah, if we're, yeah, so it's like we're double using success. Maybe I shouldn't do that. Okay, let's just imagine that this is a different bool here, right? So we say, okay, we just set what would we call it? Like bool. T has space, just working title. Transport has space, right? And then it would be that means T has space. It's the only thing this And this is checking if the transport is empty. Just copy. Modify cargo. Modify cargo. So at what point should we do basically the simple cosmetics and like rigid bodies and things like that of the cargo? It should be just cosmetic stuff. It's regardless of whether T has space, but it does depend on a successful move, successful exit. And again, at this point, either way, success is true because we have found an exit. So success is true there, success becomes true. If it's a station, it's empty. If it's a container, it's got space. We're successful. This is all if the next object, this is checking if the next object is transport. We also have to check if the next thing is free. That's what's happening here. And that's why we might want to have a different ball to check if the next thing is free, because only then would we tell it to move. But in either case, we want it to show. So it would only be in the case of success. Of success. So from a no, that would be to a transport. So it's still here. So yeah, to next station, we make a load source, we plop it in. And in each case, it should be removed. So from a transport, now it's null because it's successful. We've moved it out. So if you were holding this, then now empty it. Right. Okay. And then, because we've now made space, it's a success, then trigger the previous building. Trigger previous building, we'll do that. We'll just say, okay, for each of the buildings, trigger the previous buildings of this building. So for each endpoint it has, give it a whirl. The moving becomes true. So if you have cargo, it will move. But if you don't have cargo, moving will do nothing, which is why I think it wasn't working. So I think might have done it there. A couple errors. This isn't right. So what I believe is happening is that it's not overloading. So it seems like I reckon it's like the transport is like ejecting the thing and just putting it out. So if we've moved from a transport to container, if outpoint.out.container is not equal to null, add the cargo to the next container. Well, there's problem because so we've moved from to container. If outpoint.out.container is not equal to null, add to the container. This is not actually adding it, right? Still only 9 pieces of food there. So where is it going? It's quite frustrating this because I should be like way further on in a way, but I have I've spent like a month restructuring everything, and it's I believe it's for a good cause. It's just a bit demoralizing being back here. Okay, so it's not getting to that point. So I want to see if it's getting to that point. It's just figuring out what the problem is, half the battle. It's not like playing a game where it's like, oh yeah, press X to shoot. It's a puzzle. Oh no, it's solvable. Like, sometimes you just can't fucking solve it. Playing a game. That's a win. Just double check where all these are getting called from. So that's out cargo from transport saying out cargo, containers saying out cargo, and the processor on the processor's command, and the pipe successfully moving stuff into the container. Right. Container pulls it. Container pulls it. Calling it. So container is. So this one is. So the processor is saying, yeah, I've made an object. Send it along. But the pipe is not saying, hey, I've finished sending an object along. Send it along. So it's not even attempting to out cargo from the transport. Now, what's happening with the transport? Is it moving? Does it have a cargo? It does not have a cargo, and it's not moving. So when we out cargo from the container, so we're going to a transport, and this is happening, and we must be getting to some point. So it would be like to transport. Okay. Cargo is null. So it should be saying, yeah, send it in. Has it got space? Ah, this is where I went wrong. See, we are saying, I think we're getting it wrong. So, give cargo would happen. Upon success. No, it was this. Did I do this? I think I did do this, but okay, so If success is true, then we do it there, because that's how we do it with the other ones. We just do it straight away there and say success is true, and the success is just in case that gives more information. Okay, so now we're saying, yeah, pass that cargo along. This is just to find out if we should move it, but we always pass it along. And I still don't fully understand the problem. Well, that's definitely not valid. Oh, I know it is, but right, so you see what I did there? Animation should only happen if we're actually moving it, because it's creating the illusion of it moving. But we should always modify the cargo properly so it sits, so it's now part of that thing. And because it's now, we need to update the look of it. Show it if it's a conveyor, hide it if it's a pipe. Checking if we can eject it. And so if we can, then moving is true. But either way, if success is true, then clear the cargo, clear the occupier. Empty container? I think there should be empty container in there. Or have I already... If it's come from a container, if point container, no. Remove. And then, so, bit of a big code, but this handles like all instances of our cargo. It does everything. Doesn't have to get called too often. hate these. So where I just and it's okay. 7. What's the source? Container 46. Yeah, I should think so. 46, and it's for each game object and object, because what we do is an out cargo, which actually has the thing of removing the thing. Well, that's happening here. If success is true, then we do it. So I mean, it doesn't really make a difference. I could say basically it would be if success is equal to true. Occupier equals null. This is in the station, right? And then I would remove it. I could remove it from here. But I certainly don't need it in container, because that's elsewhere. I could now remove it from station. I could remove that if I wanted to. I could go into processor and say current source equals null. Yeah, when we're like finished with something, we say current source equals null. It could still mean that we have stuff in the container or thing, but it's just saying, well, if you, I wonder if that's necessary actually. If you have a processor, if your processor was this object, it's now null. But it would never send out an object if it was its current source. So let's delete that and we'll fix it if it comes up. And we can delete this if we want to, because we've got it elsewhere. And then would we do the same for transport, and are we already? No. When we feed an object, we go out cargo, and I could do the same thing. I could say if success. I think that's why I even had that in the first place. I probably don't need that successful, but we've got it. I don't need that out success, except for the case of the container, because it's removing from a list within a list. That's why I had to do it like that. So do I leave it? Do I do it all like that, or leave some here? I don't fucking know. Let's just leave it like this. So we don't need it on station. And that is a messy with the else thing. We've already got something there. We're already actually using success, so that's good. So it is used in a couple points, but just for specific things. Okay, so my OCD doesn't like that. Fine, deal with it. It's messy. I just need to not think about it. So, right. That's handled. And we go trigger previous building. So I'm confident in the code. I can't remember why I even came to the fridge anymore, but I got some food. So let's see if this works. Spoiler, it won't. But eventually. Better. Well, that's probably easily answered. So, trigger pre. If I can just remember, animate the next pipe. There it is. And this would occur. This would occur. Wait, not. It would happen there, but it would also happen when we move the building. So when we trigger it to move, so it would happen on trigger previous, and if our previous thing is a transport, also animate it. So it's not perfectly symmetrical as I'd like it, but I know this isn't perfect code here, but all right. Like, what time is this? 1 o'clock. I know. I know. Do for now. Been prudent enough lately. At least when I know that my theory is just achievement gained. So now the question is, when this empties, why doesn't it trigger? Why doesn't it say, hey, well, do you want to try and move? Do you want to try and do something, sir? So maybe this is wrong, but I do want things to be quite this simple. Trigger previous building. I want to say, well, hey, you've just got space in your inventory. So, and in this case, it would be because you've been triggered to by the pipe, because the pipe has just been made empty. This is finished moving its stuff. So we'll say trigger previous building, and the container will say, I'm going to move an object. And then it should say, processor, do you want to carry on doing what you were doing if you can? Like, do you want to carry on trying to work? So we'll say, so basically it's like nothing's working because I've switched off all of the things that sort of do things on a timer. Like I did a lot of things like, oh, well, I don't need this to happen every frame, but I do need it to be updated. And I would put it on like a second-long timer. And I'm just feeling like I know how to do it better now, so I've done it better. It's taking a long time. But so no, I shouldn't have it on a timer. It should only happen when necessary. And if that means writing some convoluted code where I have to connect to the transport of I have to connect to the out point of the building that's connected to the transport of the previous things that's behind it and say, you do your thing now. That's the way it's going to go. So how do we tell now that it's... So it should essentially be on container.do. That's like the last call that says, okay, we've made space in a container. It should also be in the station, really. We've made space in the station, so maybe the processor wants to start up again. So actually it's as far back as thank you, Ben. That's container.do, or no, it's as far back as so we say an item is moved, we trigger the previous building. And I would say in an attempt to get it working, get the building working again, I'd say, all right, well, the previous building, now that it has a container.do, and it's tried to empty the station, if it has a processor, and this is not going to write, but if endpoint dot in dot processor is not equal to null, then give it another whirl. And so I could, there's a couple ways I could get the processor. I could go via the container, so I could container.building.processor, right? Endpoint.in.container.building.processor. Or I manually add the processor as an option for endpoints, but I feel like endpoints are always going to be attached to a processor. I really oughtn't do that. So one way of doing it, the cheeky way, which maybe isn't the most symmetrical, but not so elegant. But hey, it's already. Okay. Let's see if that works. Let's see if it creates other bugs. It's beyond me at this point. I sort of tell myself that it really is kind of like when I'm most used to exploring like video game worlds, it's like at first you just don't know where anything is, the controls are all weird, like you don't know what you're doing. Then as you keep playing, you understand the map a lot better, and then you don't need to check the map every now and then. You just know your way to the place, and everything happens a lot quicker and smoother. So even if, when doing a project like this, at times you get you just keep like going around using the map when you need to take it slow. Stop the sympathy. Talk to someone. Slight delay to be expected, and so here's an issue: is out cargo's getting called 73 times there, right? But the good thing is that while everything's blocked up, nothing is happening. No extra script is getting called. So if I look at, it is a bit of a pain to get it, but I'm looking for the thing that tells me so what we should expect to see, what I want to see, and I like to have this solution here. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, what makes me really happy? So this really doesn't. Those spikes are just natural. So I think what that is, so that spike is being generated purely by this one called others. So you can't see my finger. This one called others. These spikes. And I think what that is the trash compactor. So I think that's me when it's basically me writing bad code like running bad code like get component and things happening more often than they should, and making string concatenations. It's things that I've learned in the last year are apparently bad. But I think I've reduced it a lot, but that's what's causing that. So I'm just kind of fixing that over time as I have the patience to cope through my code, and sometimes I have to do things quite differently to make it work. But running very nicely compared to before, I think. And I think as I expand it, it's that UI and fine. Probably the animation could be lower, but this is plus 120. Nothing's happening, but not bad. It's nothing supposed to be happening. Which is actually harder than it sounds to achieve. Doing that seems to have no impact. Those spikes are unrelated. It might increase the rate because it might give more to the trash compactor, but it seems that stays regardless of what I'm doing here. So that means that it's just going, calling a script like out cargo 118 times in after all of those clicks, that's not too bad. One issue is that if this was like a long snake and pipe, that would happen over lots of objects. But let's really have a look at this script and see how much actually gets done. So, to my knowledge, if outPoint.out doesn't exist, that stops. That stops right there. It just goes, all right, does outPoint.out exist? Okay, if not, then go to the end here. We ignore all of this, and none of this is taking up processing. So in each case, it's only going to have one of these: transport, station, or container. And in each case, we're doing pretty simple things with things that we've already got access to, things that we've already cached, like we know what that point we're using, and we're we know the box number, and we just add an object to that, set up to false, that takes no processing time. All these things very simple. Container.do, again, it's been vastly simplified compared to how it was before. And this is just to say, this just like says, okay, if you've got stuff in your outbox, send it out. If you've got and display the feedback on both the UI and the little panel. Achievement. This happens now. Now. Okay, so error number 1. So why can't I see the items in that inbox? Why is that moving around? It's because I don't have a properly scaling UI. So the next thing I was wanting to test is I want to know if I take an object out of this, does it restart? In fact, I can just kind of test a bit like this. Just say around fill up. Encouraging, that wasn't happening before, and it's because the trigger previous is working as intended. Yeah, so while 190 is like maybe it's too many, so little going on, but my thinking is, well, that's only when I'm like grabbing things and stuff. It's only when things aren't full, and it's pretty simple code, and it's better than if you've got all of these things and they're all sort of triggering once per second regardless of what they're doing. You know, you can sort of say at least if the player's made a somewhat refined base, then it's not going to bug out. I haven't seen a base that's bugging this version of the game out yet, so that's that's slowing it down. It's buggy as hell, but it's got a good frame rate. Okay, so next thing is I have to put on my UI hat now. I'm just kind of doing things in the order that I feel they'll be done. So we have this all in order, people can do that, but one of the things that you might want to do is up here, can I see these? I don't know. I have some ideas because I've changed a lot of shit, but I don't know specifically. So another little thing I wanted to test, just before I move on to that, is also if I can this. That's a power issue though. Excuse me. It's a power issue though. So what I want to test before I go into UI stuff is just putting it right. So it's making the item, it's outing the cargo, it's discovered that it has a container to put to, and because it's going straight to a container, it will simply say add to the container and attempt to use the processor if it's a processor. Make it visible, hide the cargo because it's indoors now, but we don't actually check here. We don't need the debug anymore. We don't actually check here. Do you have space? actually. I could have just said 9, but could have said 9 here. Don't do any of that unless you got space, right? Unless this, and same here. Yeah, we're already doing that. So I trust this will work. Same code. Because the fear is that it sort of goes, oh, it's still keep going, keep trying it into, you know, there's so many ways to focus on, you know, but it's like, I'm very happy this is working. And as I see problems in future, it's all going to be very much just looking at that code, navigating that forest, navigating that map, that world. Okay. So the next thing now is all about getting the building panel to work, which means, and I made lots of changes to that. So while this isn't the big UI update, I think I'm just going for this one where, well, everything's going to be organized in the right spot. At least we'll try this out for a while. The shop is completely broken, need to fix it, get it working. Yeah, I've been doing this. I do need to do that. Yeah, we'll use a hitbox instead of raycast to, so that, I mean, that would probably come before, because that might actually be the problem, if there was a problem. But this is a big shift in mindset, because I say, okay, so we open up. What I like to do is just get rid of all of these. And the one we're going to be concerned with mostly is building panel, which handles everything to do with the building panel, which is so we store the core components. I don't know if this is the best way to do things, but for me, just so every other script can access it easily, I just make a static thing that is the script and assign it to itself at start, at awake, so that other people can know who it is. Don't know why I have that twice. Do I have that? Why? I never need that. You know, it's just so that's. So this is just so other things can refer to it easily, and I just put that so I don't have to actually get the component. I can always, because it's only ever going to be one thing at a time, so it can be a static thing. What is the building that is open at the moment, and this building panel, so we can easily access any of the public things in it. The UI parts, yeah, that's it's all UI. I don't know what I meant there. Okay, so we have things to do with the container, things to do with the info panel, which is the unique panel. So I'm going to be changing that. That's going to be called the unique panel because that's going to be one that changes for each object. Container panel is 3 panels. And they're basically as you see on the outside, as you saw just there. There's 3 of them. 3 possible ones. You won't see the ones that aren't active. Info panel, yeah, it's the unique panel. Every building will have one panel that's unique to it, but all the other ones will be universal. You see its name has a back button, and then there's the actual background of it, which isn't always up, so it's kept separate. And power usage text. So these are really things that just haven't categorized yet. The do once button is a unique thing. It allows you to toggle the building to just do once as opposed to repeat until it can't do it anymore, but just to do it once. So you can say, for example, just drain the blood of human once. This is the transport panel, and it's a bit convoluted, but it also contains the information for the item filter panel. It probably should be kept separate. Battery panel shows battery stuff, text, current power, all that stuff. Human filter panel, so everything to do with the human filter, again, that's going to be heavily modified, I think. Camera panel is, so this would be folded into the unique panel. Station panel will look just like the container panel, and that's to help associate the player's mind that it's kind of like a container but for a single human rather than 9 objects. The ones for the processor, so the progress bar, and that would also be the power button. This would be this would be folded into the unique panel, as with this. This was back when every script had a reference to the object menu, but I don't need to do it like that. We don't need that. So yeah, it's very old code actually. So this is the kind of thing I would keep. That's just this reference, but I would want to go from the ground up and think about how I want to do this. So just have all these little functions like for the item filter, basically swap them all, send them all to the right, send them all to the left, but I think I'm going to fundamentally change how that works. I'll have to think about it again. Okay, the simple script of open me up, bp.do, so it's public static, so it can be got from anywhere, but of course I probably don't need it to be like that. But anyway, it's the one, this just does that essentially and sets the building. Do, so this opens us up, displays the building name properly, does some text. So I haven't properly commented it out. Container panels, yeah, sort out the container panels. set their position based on what type of container it is. So in the case of a fabricator, it would have them spread out. But the new way that I'm going to do that is that no, if you're not used, you just switch off, but they all kind of stay in the same position roughly. I mean, exactly. They'll just be switched on and off as needed. They don't change position. The export box again. That's in part of the info panel. So would be a unique thing saying, okay, well, in the case of an export box, open up this is the unique panel, and I would think that actually every building would have its own section here to say what happens when you click on me. I think that's fair. So, except for the boring ones, you know, the ones that literally are just the sum of their parts. Like a feeding trough, it's a station with a container. That means you can eat. Humans can use it to get food with the tag food container. So humans will go and eat there. So it doesn't have any other function other than that. That's unique to it. So I wouldn't need to put anything in that script, but still the info panel would open and you would see the title of the object just for consistency. I don't know, symmetry. So yeah, if we've opened a transport, show the transport panel. I think I would fold that into unique, so it would be, if it's a transport, then do this. And then, yeah, we probably have our little display of the thing moving, because I think that's cool. Like, show us what's in the cargo. It helps me debug as well. And the other one, and the filter, which would probably be its own window that you would access using the unique panel. Same with the human filter, because these things need space. We'll see what clever things I can do to make that work. So if it's a transport, oof. Just moving all that stuff. Is it a pipe? Is it a conveyor? Shows this, shows that. Is it human? This can probably be simplified. Right panel. So this would be, yeah, for the items, item filters. It's all of that. It's very convoluted there. Station panel, well, that just sets active on open. And then what happens in update is it will give up to date information. And I think that's fair. But this would never be the case for the unique panel. So this would just be like station panel, just show me, because a human's stats are going to be constantly changing, so you will want to see that move. And you can only ever look at one at a time, so it's not going to kill the processing, kill the frames. So update, yeah, we kind of do everything. Shuffle, kind of, yeah, I'm going to change all of this. And that's the building panel code. So this needs a lot of changes. This needs a lot of this could just do with tidying. And to be perfectly honest, my best option might be to pretty much do it from scratch. To say, okay, well, we have a function open a building. That's all it will ever do, and that will be from the controller. So we have that, and then show me all the stuff. Yeah, it's very similar, but geez, this is a mess. Everything's named improperly. Everything's built in a way that it doesn't need to be. The filters are going to change completely. A lot is going to change, so we can really simplify it, really, and get it working in the new way that it should. Because as you can see, everything's kind of, I don't know if you noticed, it wasn't appearing properly. That's my next task. I'm going to end the stream there at the best time, the o'clock, because yeah, I need to put on a new hat, so I'm going to pace around. I'm going to maybe have a nap, I don't know, before I get to the next thing. So cheers for joining me, if anyone did. I hope it was educational. More importantly, I hope it gets people aware of the game that I'm making. But yeah, cheers, thank you. Bye.